Comeback. Even though evil is real, you are headed for a comeback this year in 2020. I'm going to give you a secondary example, and his name was Job. If you know the story of Job, Job remained faithful. But let's just unpack the different chapters of Job. If you read in chapter 1, he loses his house, his business, and his children. Chapter 2, he loses his health. His wife tells him to give up on God. Then his friends begin to attack his character in chapter 7. And chapter 15, he's accused of foolishness and stupidity. And then 22, he's accused of being wicked. Setback. I don't know if you've ever studied through the book of Job, which, by the way, was the very first book ever recorded in the Bible. But if you look at the story of Job, I mean, he is sitting with boils on a hickory stump. His friends are trying to console him, but then they're like, you must have sinned. And it's just an awful, awful experience. He's lost everything. Could you imagine, put it practically, could you imagine right now, today, if everything that you know and you have was just gone? And now go sit out on a hickory stump. Try and process that. All of your family, all of your possessions, gone in an instant. And now you're sitting there, and your friends come up and they start accusing you that you must be a sinner. That's why that happened to you. And Job responds to the setback, what I call setback mountain. In chapter 13, verse 15, he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. And I put a statement up here. I'd love for you to write this one down as well. God loves you, church. He loves you, and he can turn your tragedy into a triumph. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, it's time for a comeback. He can turn your tragedy into a triumph. He can turn your test into a testimony. See, you have a story to share of what God did in your life. And that is the greatest story that we ever get to tell somebody else. I love telling my story. That one moment, January 14th of 1998, out on a set of railroad tracks where God just took my life and he put a 180 on it and he said, we're going to go this way. And now I'm standing here talking to you about it. It is incredible what God does through our tests to change them into testimonies, our tragedies into triumph. Look at what happens at the end of Job's life. He had a comeback moment. It says in Job 42, the Lord restored Job's losses, and indeed the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job's life more than the beginning. Job was a prosperous, wealthy man. He had a lot of property, a lot of cattle. He had a big family. He had it going on, all stripped from him. God gave it all back. Come on, look at your neighbor and say it's time for a comeback. The passage goes on and it says, he also had 7 sons, 3 daughters, and 10 more kids. In all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. I want to give you some encouragement today. Here's my encouragement from the book of Job. If you feel like him, like you've had the stuffing kicked out of you, like you've experienced so much loss, borrow Job's faith. Job remained faithful. He would not quit on God. No matter what, Lord, I am going to serve you. I'm going to believe in you. My wife even told me to quit on you. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, I'm not going to quit. Tell them it's time for a comeback. I'm not going to quit on faith. If you need encouragement, borrow Job's faith. See, after the pain, there is a payoff. You just got to keep the faith. There's double for your trouble.